The storm had raged for 3 days across the Arctic plains, snow falling so heavily that even the strongest machines struggled to move forward. The research team of 6 humans huddled inside their temporary shelter, metal walls shaking as the icy wind pushed against them. They had come this far north not for treasure, not for fame, but for answers hidden deep in the ice. On the 4th morning, when the skies finally cleared and the pale sun rose weakly over the endless white, the team resumed their digging. Shovels, drills, and cutting lasers bit into the thick ice that had not seen daylight for centuries. For hours, the sound of chipping echoed, until suddenly one of the workers shouted. His voice was filled with shock, not excitement. "Something here," he cried. "Not rock, not ice." The others rushed to his side. Brushing away the frost, they saw a strange glow trapped within the layers of ice. It pulsed faintly, like the slow heartbeat of a sleeping creature. The humans exchanged nervous glances, hearts pounding. In silence, they cleared more ice until the shape inside became clear. It was a girl, but not a human one. Her skin shimmered faint blue, as if woven with light itself. Long strands of silver hair floated around her frozen face. Her body was curled tightly, hands pressed to her chest. She looked fragile, like glass, yet alive, as if time had paused for her. The team leader, Dr. Mason, stepped forward. His breath caught as he looked at her. She's alive," he whispered, though he could not explain how he knew. Her chest rose faintly, a breath every few seconds, like a candle refusing to die out. Arguments broke out among the team. One scientist said they must leave her. Another said she could be dangerous. Another warned she might be carrying alien disease. But Dr. Mason silenced them with a look. "We came here to seek life, knowledge, and truth," he said firmly. "We will not turn away from her." With careful hands, they cut deeper. Hours passed, sweat freezing on their brows finally. The last wall of ice broke away and the girl slid gently into their waiting arms. Her body was cold as stone, yet soft like a child's. Her eyelids fluttered, as though the warmth of human touch was pulling her back. The wind outside howled again, as if the earth itself was warning them. The team carried her inside their shelter, laying her on a heated bed. Frost cracked along her skin, tiny sparks of blue light spreading from her chest to her fingertips. The room glowed faintly with her presence, filling the humans with both awe and fear. One of the younger researchers whispered, "She's not meant to survive this. No one could, not here." His words hung heavy, but the girl's chest rose again, steady this time. She was breathing, fighting, clinging to life with every fragile moment. Dr. Mason knelt beside her, studying her face. Her lips trembled, opening slightly. No words came, only a soft sound, like a cry that had been trapped for centuries. He reached out, placing his gloved hand gently over hers. "You are safe now," he said quietly, though he knew she could not understand. The others gathered closer, their fear slowly replaced by something else. A strange warmth grew inside them, a sense that they were no longer just scientists. They were guardians, protectors of something rare, something precious. The heater hummed softly, melting the last of the frost around her. Drops of water slid down her glowing skin. Her silver hair spread across the blanket like rivers of light. Her eyelids opened slowly, and for the first time her eyes met theirs. They were not human eyes. They shone like twin stars, bright and endless, filled with fear, confusion, and a silent plea. She looked at the strangers around her, her breath quickening. A single tear formed at the corner of her eye, rolling down her frozen cheek. The humans froze as well. None dared move or speak. The air inside the shelter grew thick with silence, broken only by the soft hum of machines and her weak breaths. Dr. Mason finally spoke, his voice calm but trembling. "We found her, and she lives," he said, as if declaring it to history itself. "From this moment on, her life is our responsibility." The girl blinked slowly, her gaze flicking between them. Though she could not speak, the humans understood the meaning in her eyes. She was afraid, She was lost. But deep inside, she was begging for one thing: for them not to leave her alone in the cold again. Outside, the storm rose once more, covering the world in endless white. But inside the small shelter, something impossible had begun. The discovery was not just frozen life. It was a question, a choice, a destiny waiting to unfold. And for the first time in human history, compassion outweighed fear in the face of the unknown. The shelter was quiet except for the faint hum of heaters and the sharp breathing of 6 anxious humans. Their eyes stayed fixed on the girl who lay wrapped in blankets, steam rising as her icy body slowly warmed. Each second felt like a lifetime. Every breath she took seemed like a fragile miracle. "Doctor." Mason checked her pulse again. Though it was faint, it was steady, stronger than before. He leaned back, rubbing his tired eyes. The others whispered nervously behind him. "She should be dead," muttered Karen, the medic, shaking her head. "No one survives centuries inside ice." "But she's breathing," said Henry, the youngest of the team. "I saw it. I swear." Her chest moved. "She's alive." Alive, yes, but fragile. Her lips were cracked, her hands trembling even in sleep. Blue light still flickered faintly under her skin, pulsing from her chest outward. It was not just strange. It was otherworldly, a sign that she was no normal being. Hours passed as the storm outside battered the shelter. But inside, the humans kept watch. Some feared her, some felt pity, but all of them were bound by the same silent truth. They could not abandon her. Near midnight, the girl stirred. Her head shifted slightly on the pillow, her eyelids twitching. Then with a soft gasp, her mouth opened. She coughed weakly, a sound sharp and painful, and then drew in a long, shaky breath, her first breath of freedom after centuries of silence. The humans froze, hearts pounding. They had expected her to stay unconscious, maybe to fade away. But instead she was fighting, her lungs filled with air, her body trembling as though rejecting the world and yet clinging to it at the same time. Her eyes fluttered open once more, dim light shining in her gaze. This time, there was more awareness, more life. She looked around the room, confused, scared. Her lips moved, but no words came out, only a soft whimper. Karen knelt beside her, placing a hand gently near her shoulder. "It's all right," she said softly. "You're safe." The girl's gaze snapped to her hand, her breathing quickened. She tried to push herself up, but her strength failed. Her body was too weak, her limbs shaking as if they had forgotten how to move. She fell back onto the pillow with a soft cry, tears forming at the corners of her glowing eyes. Dr. Mason stepped closer, holding up both hands in a calming gesture. "We will not hurt you," he said, speaking slowly. "Do you understand? Safe. Here." The girl's lips parted again, and this time a sound came out, a broken word, strange yet familiar. "No, send back," she whispered weakly. The team froze, exchanging shocked looks. She could speak, even if broken, even worse. She was afraid of being returned. Returned to what? Or to whom none of them knew. "She knows," Henry said softly, his face pale. "She knows someone put her there. Someone wanted her frozen." The girl's body shook, a faint glow flickering brighter under her skin. Her voice rose again, weak but urgent. "No. Send back." Her hands clutched at the blanket as though it was her last line of defense. Karen's eyes softened with pity. She brushed away the tears on the alien girl's face. We won't send you back," she said firmly, though her own heart was full of fear. The girl closed her eyes, whispering one last time, "Safe, please," before falling into a restless sleep. For a long moment, no one spoke. The heater hummed. Snow rattled against the shelter walls. The humans stood in silence, each one of them weighed down by the same question. What had they just promised, and against whom? Dr. Mason finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "She's not just a survivor. he said. She was imprisoned, buried in the ice on purpose, and now, whoever did that may come looking for her. The words chilled the room more than the storm outside. Hours later, while the girl slept, strange readings appeared on their monitors. Weak signals, not from Earth, not human. Faint bursts of energy blinked across the radar, as though something far above the clouds was searching. Henry leaned closer to the screen, his voice trembling. "We're not alone up here," he whispered. Karen glanced at the sleeping alien girl, her small frame curled tightly under the blanket. "Then we've already made our choice," she said. "We protect her, no matter what." The storm outside grew heavier again, winds screaming across the frozen plains. But inside the shelter, something warmer took root. For the first time, the alien girl had spoken not with strength but with fear, begging humans not to return her to the fate she had escaped. And for the first time, humanity answered, not with weapons, not with science, but with a promise. The morning came with silence. The storm outside had passed, leaving the Arctic plain glittering under pale sunlight. The snow stretched endlessly in every direction, white and empty. But inside the shelter, the humans felt anything but peace. Dr. Mason stood over the monitor, his eyes fixed on the faint signals still flashing on the screen. They had appeared in the night and had not faded. Weak bursts of energy, pulsing in a pattern, too regular to be natural. "They're searching," he muttered, his voice low. "Something out there is scanning for her." Henry frowned. "Are we sure it's not Earth satellites?" Mason shook his head. "No, this is different. This is not human tech." The others gathered around, tension heavy in the air. The alien girl still slept on the cot, her breaths shallow but steady. Her body glowed faintly under the blanket, a soft light spreading across the shelter walls. She looked peaceful, yet vulnerable, like a small flame in the middle of endless snow. Karen glanced between the monitors and the girl. "If they're looking for her, it means someone put her in that ice, and now they've come back." The words made everyone's stomach twist. Just then, the girl stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, fear flashing in them before she had even looked around, as though she felt the danger without needing to see it. She sat up weakly, clutching the blanket close. Her gaze moved to the monitor, and instantly her face changed. Her skin glowed brighter, her breaths quickened, and she raised a trembling hand toward the flashing signals. "No," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "They come. For me." The humans froze. They had expected confusion, maybe silence, but not this clear recognition. Mason crouched beside her. "Who are they?" he asked gently. "Why are they searching for you?" Her lips trembled, eyes filling with tears. She shook her head slowly, unable to form the words. Instead, she pressed both hands to her chest and whispered, "Not safe, not safe." Henry's jaw tightened. "We can't stay here. If they land nearby, we'll all be trapped." Karen nodded. "We need to move her, hide her somewhere deeper in the ice, somewhere they won't look." Mason looked around at his team. He could see the fear in their faces, but also the determination. They had already chosen to protect her, and there was no turning back. That afternoon, they packed quickly, loading supplies into a crawler vehicle. The girl could barely walk, so Mason carried her wrapped in blankets. Her light glowed faintly against his chest. Her silver hair brushed against his jacket, soft as snow. They drove across the frozen plains, engines growling against the silence. The air was sharp, cutting into their lungs. The sun dipped low, turning the world into a sea of gold and white. But in the distance, faint shadows moved in the sky. Henry was the first to see it. "There," he whispered, pointing upward. Dark shapes hovered far above, hidden behind clouds, sleek and silent, too smooth to be human planes. The girl buried her face against Mason's chest, trembling. "No." "Send back," she murmured again, voice full of terror. The team pushed the crawler harder, heading toward a chain of mountains where caves were marked on their maps. The closer they drew, the more restless the girl became. She looked out the window with wide eyes, her lips moving in silent prayers. Her fear infected the others, making every shadow, every gust of wind feel like a threat. By nightfall, they reached the mountains, jagged teeth of stone rising out of the ice. They guided the crawler into a narrow path, stopping before a dark cave mouth. The place was cold and silent, but it offered shelter. Inside, they set up a small camp, heaters buzzing faintly. The girl sat curled in a corner, clutching the blanket. Her glowing eyes reflected the dim light. She looked smaller than ever, but when Mason crouched beside her, she reached out and grabbed his sleeve. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Please, no send." "Back." Mason placed his hand gently on hers. "We won't," he said firmly. "Not while we breathe." The girl stared at him for a long moment, tears glistening in her eyes. Then, slowly, she nodded. But outside, in the snow, the shadows grew. Karen stood at the mouth of the cave, scanning the horizon through binoculars. Her breath froze in the air. Her heart pounded when she saw it. Strange machines moving across the plains, crawling on thin legs, glowing with blue lights. They were searching, sweeping the ground with beams of energy. "They're here," she whispered, lowering the binoculars. "And they're close." Inside the cave, the humans gathered around the girl. The air felt heavy, thick with fear. The girl's light pulsed faster, matching her racing heartbeat. She looked at them all, her lips forming words with great effort. "They hunters," she said softly. "I that mistake. I was not meant to live." Her words hit them like a hammer. The silence was broken only by the faint echoes of machines outside. Sweeping closer, Mason clenched his fists. "Well, you're alive now," he said sharply, "and we won't let them take you." The girl's eyes widened, shimmering with shock, as though she had never been told those words before. For the first time, a flicker of hope crossed her face, even as the shadows in the snow drew nearer. The cave was silent, but outside the snow was alive with movement. The strange machines crept across the plains like hunters, their thin legs sinking into the ice, glowing beams sweeping the ground as they searched for signs of life. The humans crouched near the entrance. Watching with tight jaws and pounding hearts, Karen whispered, "They're too close. If they scan this cave, they'll find us." Dr. Mason's face was pale in the dim light, but his eyes stayed steady. "Then we move deeper. We can't risk her being seen." The alien girl sat curled in the blankets, her light pulsing like a frightened heartbeat. She looked at them with wide eyes, and though her lips barely moved, she whispered again, "Hunters." Henry grabbed one of the heavy packs and slung it over his shoulder. "We can't fight them, not with what we have," he muttered. "If they see us, we're dead." Mason bent down, lifting the girl gently into his arms. Her body trembled against his chest, her silver hair brushing against his jacket. She was weak, but her eyes never left the shadows outside the cave, as if she could feel every step of the hunters even through the stone walls. They moved deeper into the cave, their lamps casting long shadows on the jagged walls. The air grew colder, frost crunching under their boots. The sound of their breathing echoed heavy and sharp. Behind them, faint noises filtered in, the mechanical hum of alien machines moving closer. Suddenly, the girl stirred in Mason's arms. Her hand gripped his coat with surprising strength. She pointed weakly toward a narrow passage hidden behind jagged rocks. "There," she whispered, her voice cracking. Mason hesitated, but he trusted her. He guided the team through the passage, squeezing into the narrow gap. The tunnel twisted downward, the air colder but quieter. It led them into a chamber hidden deep inside the mountain. Here they stopped, setting her down gently on a flat stone. The chamber glowed faintly from her light, casting silver ripples along the frozen walls. She looked exhausted, but her lips parted again. "Safe. Here," she said, then closed her eyes as though drained. The team shared worried looks, but before they could speak, a loud hum vibrated through the stone. The hunters had reached the cave above. Their scanning beams crawled across the walls, pale light seeping into cracks like searching fingers. Karen clutched her rifle tighter. though she knew it was useless against machines built for war. Henry pressed his back to the wall, his breath coming fast. Mason moved to the girl's side, his hand resting gently on her arm. "We'll protect you," he whispered, though even he wondered how. The humming grew louder, echoing through the cave. Then, a sharp beam of blue light pierced through a crack in the rock, sweeping across the chamber. It missed them by inches, but it was enough. The machines had detected something. The cave shook as the hunters began forcing their way inside. The sound of metal scraping stone filled the chamber. "Move," Mason ordered, lifting the girl again. "We need to get out the other side." They scrambled through another tunnel, stumbling over ice and stone. The girl clung to him weakly, her light flickering like a dying flame. Behind them, the walls cracked as the hunters broke through. For a moment it seemed they would be crushed. But then the girl stirred, her hand glowing brighter, her body shimmered, and for an instant, a faint shield of light formed around them. The falling stones bounced off harmlessly. The humans froze in shock. She saved us," Henry whispered, awe in his voice. The girl groaned softly, her strength fading. The glow dimmed, and the shield vanished. Mason held her tighter, pushing forward. They burst out into another opening high in the mountains. The air was sharp and cold, snow whipping against their faces. Far below they could see the hunters crawling across the plains, their glowing eyes scanning endlessly. But one of the machines spotted movement. Its head turned sharply, blue light fixing on them. A piercing screech echoed through the air, a signal. Within seconds others turned, moving swiftly toward the mountains. "They've seen us," Karen shouted. "Run!" The team stumbled down the rocky slope, their boots slipping on ice. The crawler was parked at the base, its engines still warm. They threw open the hatch and climbed inside, Mason carrying the girl carefully. The engines roared to life, and the crawler lurched forward. Snow sprayed behind them as they sped across the plains. The hunters gave chase, long legs moving fast, beams of light striking the ice around them. Inside the crawler, the humans clung to their seats, the metal shaking with every impact. Mason shielded the girl as best he could. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, glowing faintly. "Please. No send. Back," she whispered. Mason looked down at her, his voice firm. "We won't, no matter what." The crawler bounced violently as a beam struck near its side, throwing up shards of ice. Sparks flew from the control panel. Henry cursed as he fought to keep the machine steady. Karen fired blindly out the window, bullets bouncing uselessly against the hunter's armor. "They're faster," Henry shouted. "We can't outrun them." Then the girl stirred again. Her light pulsed stronger, brighter. She lifted a weak hand, placing it against the crawler's metal wall. Suddenly, the machine surged forward, faster than it had ever gone before. The engine screamed, but the power was not from fuel, it was from her. The humans gasped as the crawler raced across the ice like a living beast. The hunters fell behind, their lights fading into the storm. When the crawler finally slowed, miles away, the team sat in silence, staring at the girl. Her hand slipped from the wall, her body collapsing into Mason's arms. Her glow faded to a faint shimmer, but she was still breathing, Mason whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "She's not just surviving, she's something more." The others nodded slowly, still trembling from fear and awe. The hunters were still out there, but for now, they had escaped. And for the first time, the humans realized they were no longer simply protecting her. She was protecting them too. The crawler rumbled across the frozen plains, its heavy treads cracking the ice beneath. Inside, the humans sat in tense silence, every heart still racing from the chase. Dr. Mason held the alien girl close, her body limp against him, her light now only a faint shimmer beneath her skin. Henry finally broke the silence, his voice shaky. "She saved us." She made the crawler move faster. It wasn't the engine. It was her. Karen rubbed her forehead, her eyes still wide with disbelief. "She's not just a survivor, she's something more. Her people didn't freeze her because she was weak. They froze her because she was different." Mason looked down at the girl in his arms. Her breathing was shallow but steady, Her glowing eyes were shut, her silver hair damp with melted frost. She looked so fragile, and yet, only hours ago, she had shielded them from falling rock and pushed their machine beyond its limits. As they drove deeper into the mountains, the storm behind them swallowed the hunters, but Mason knew it would not last. "They won't stop," he said grimly. "They want her, and they'll keep coming until they have her." The words settled like stones in the pit of everyone's stomach. They reached an abandoned research station built years ago by earlier explorers. The place was half buried in snow, metal walls rusted but still standing. They dragged their supplies inside and set up camp. The heaters groaned weakly, struggling against the cold, but at least it was shelter. Mason laid the girl on a cot, covering her with blankets. Her skin glowed faintly in the dim room, casting ripples of light across the metal walls. She stirred weakly, her lips parting. "Safe?" she whispered, her voice thin and fragile. "Yes," Mason said firmly, kneeling beside her. "You're safe with us." She closed her eyes again, but a faint smile touched her lips. It was the first sign of peace they had seen on her face since the discovery later that night. While the girl slept, the humans gathered around the small table in the center of the station. The hum of the heaters filled the silence. "We can't keep this up," Karen said quietly, her voice heavy. "They'll find us again. And every time it's going to get harder to escape. If we keep her, we're signing our own death warrants." Henry slammed his fist on the table. "We can't just give her up. She begged us not to send her back. You saw her eyes. She's terrified of them." Karen's voice cracked. "And what about us, Henry? What about our lives? Do they mean nothing? Do you want to die for someone we don't even know?" The room fell into a heavy silence. Mason finally spoke, his voice calm but strong. "We've already made a choice. The moment we freed her from that ice, we chose. We can't undo it now." The others looked at him, some with anger, some with fear, but deep inside, they knew he was right. Just then, a soft glow filled the room. They turned and saw the girl standing weakly at the edge of the cot. Her body trembled, but she was awake. Her glowing eyes looked at each of them, her lips trembling as she tried to speak. "Danger," she whispered. "They come. Soon?" Karen stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. "How do you know?" The girl pressed her hand to her chest, where the faint glow pulsed like a second heart. "Feel," she said softly. "They always feel me." The words chilled them. If her people could sense her, there would be no hiding, no running, not forever. But then, as if sensing their despair, the girl raised her trembling hand and touched Karen's arm. A faint warmth spread through Karen's skin, easing the ache in her muscles. The girl's glow brightened slightly. Karen gasped, staring at her arm. "She healed me," she whispered. "My burns from the ice, they're gone." The team exchanged stunned looks. Henry leaned forward, whispering, "She's not a burden. She's hope. If she can heal, if she can protect, maybe she's the reason we were meant to find her." Mason nodded slowly, his eyes on the girl. They froze her not because she was weak, but because she was powerful. Too powerful, they feared her, but we see her differently. The girl's eyes filled with tears. She had understood more than they realized. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Not meant to live, they say. Mistake, but you. Different." Mason placed a steady hand on her shoulder, his voice firm. "Yes, humanity is different. We don't throw away life, we protect it." The girl's tears fell, shimmering like liquid light against her skin. For the first time, she leaned into his touch as though allowing herself to believe his words. But outside, the night was alive with distant sounds. The faint hum of alien machines echoed across, the ice closer now, relentless. Henry tightened his grip on his weapon. Karen checked the weak metal doors. Mason pulled the blanket tighter around the girl. Her glow pulsed softly in the dark. Not just light, but a promise. The price of protection was heavy. Fear, danger, and the risk of death. But none of them spoke of abandoning her again. For in the frozen wasteland, they had found something more precious than survival. They had found a life worth fighting for. The night in the mountains was heavy and cold, The wind howled through broken metal walls of the research station, carrying snow that slipped through every crack. The humans barely slept. Each sound outside made their hearts leap, for they knew the hunters were drawing near. At dawn, the first sign appeared. The ground shook faintly beneath their boots, a slow, steady vibration. Henry ran to the window, his breath fogging the glass. Far in the distance, shadows moved across the white plains, tall and thin, glinting with blue light. "They're here," he whispered, voice tight with fear. "Doctor?" Mason gathered the others quickly. His eyes were calm but heavy. "We can't outrun them this time. They've found us. If we try to flee, they'll catch us in the open." Karen's jaw tightened. "Then what? We make our stand here?" Mason nodded slowly. His gaze turned to the alien girl who sat wrapped in blankets near the heater. Her silver hair glowed faintly, her eyes wide and fearful. She looked smaller than ever. Yet when Mason knelt beside her, she reached for his hand. "They want me," she whispered. "Not you if I go. You live." Mason shook his head firmly. "No. We don't hand over life to death, not yours, not anyone's." Her eyes filled with tears, but he held her hand steady. "We fight," he said, "together." The humans prepared quickly. Their weapons were old, rifles and explosives meant for research protection, not war. They set traps along the snow outside, wiring explosives near the frozen ridges. Every hand shook with cold and fear, but none stopped working. The hunters arrived. At midday, tall machines with bodies like shadows of steel, their glowing eyes swept across the mountains scanning. The hum of their engines was like a storm of bees. Behind them, sleek alien soldiers moved with weapons glowing faint blue. Their voices echoed, sharp and cruel, though the humans could not understand the language. The girl trembled as she heard them, pressing her hands to her ears. "They call me Mistake," she whispered. "They say, and me?" Karen crouched beside her, pulling her close. "No one ends you. Not while we're here." Then the first beam of energy struck. The front wall of the station exploded in sparks, throwing shards of metal across the room. The humans ducked, firing their rifles in return. Bullets sparked against armor but slowed some of the advancing soldiers. Henry triggered the first trap. An explosion tore through the ice ridge, sending shards flying. Several hunters collapsed under the weight of snow and rock, but more came forward, relentless. The battle raged across the frozen valley, humans fighting. With every scrap of courage, hunters pushing forward with alien power, the air filled with fire and ice, each strike shaking the mountains. Through it all, the girl sat trembling, her light flickering like a candle in the wind. Mason knelt beside her in the chaos. "You have power," he said urgently. "We've seen it. You shielded us before. You made the crawler run. You can help us now." Her eyes widened in fear. "If I use it, they find me faster." "They've already found you," Mason said firmly. "But if you fight with us, they cannot take you." The girl's lips trembled, her tears glowing faintly against her cheeks. She looked out at the humans fighting, Henry shouting as he reloaded, Karen firing until her rifle smoked, Mason standing protectively in front of her. And then, for the first time, she pushed herself up, her body shaking but her gaze steady. She stepped into the snow outside, her bare feet glowing against the white ground. The hunters paused as her body flared with light. She raised her trembling hands, and suddenly the air itself shifted. Ice cracked underfoot, shards rising into the air as if obeying her. The storm above bent downward, wind swirling around her like a shield. She screamed, a sound filled with pain and defiance, and the hunters staggered back, their beams scattering harmlessly against the wall of light. The humans froze in awe. Mason's breath caught in his throat. She was no fragile child. She was a force. Her glow bathed the valley, turning the snow into rivers of ice. Silver with each movement of her hands, walls of ice rose, blocking the hunters. Spears of frozen light shot forward, striking their machines and tearing them apart. The soldiers shouted in panic, their blue weapons failing against her power. But the strength cost her. Her body shook violently, blood mixing with tears on her glowing face. Mason rushed to her, side steadying her. "Enough," he urged. "You'll burn yourself out." She looked at him with wide eyes, her voice breaking. For you, I fight. And she unleashed one final wave. A blast of light and frost that shook the valley itself. The hunters screamed, machines collapsing, weapons shattering. The ground split open, swallowing the enemy into the ice. Silence followed, broken only by the soft hiss of wind. The valley was empty, the hunters gone. The girl collapsed into Mason's arms, her glow dim but steady, her breathing shallow. Her eyes fluttered open one last time, gazing up at him with a faint smile. Safe, she whispered. With you. Mason held her tightly, his own eyes burning. Around them, the humans stood in stunned silence, bruised, bloodied, but alive. For the first time since the discovery, the girl was not only a survivor, she was a warrior, and humanity had proven they would stand beside her, even in the heart of the frozen wasteland. The valley was quiet at last. The storm had faded, leaving only drifting snowflakes that glowed faintly in the morning light. The broken machines of the hunters lay half buried in the ice, their blue lights extinguished. The battle was over, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the noise of war. Doctor. Mason cradled the alien girl in his arms. Her glow was faint, now like the last embers of a dying fire. Her breathing was shallow, each rise of her chest a struggle. The others gathered around, their faces pale with exhaustion, eyes full of worry. Karen knelt beside them, brushing snow from the girl's silver hair. She saved us all, she whispered, her voice trembling. She gave everything. Henry's fists clenched at his sides. We can't let her die now. Not after all this. The girl stirred weakly, her glowing eyes fluttering open. She looked at the humans surrounding her, their faces smeared with frost and sweat, their clothes torn and bloodied. Yet none of them had left her side. None had abandoned her even when death came close. Her lips trembled as she whispered. They said I was mistake. They said, not meant to live. Her voice cracked, filled with years of fear and shame. But you, different. Mason tightened his hold on her, his voice steady though his throat ached. They were wrong, he said firmly. You are alive, and that matters. We chose to protect you, not because we had to, but because it was right. Tears rolled down the girl's glowing cheeks, shimmering like drops of liquid silver. She pressed her trembling hand to Mason's chest, feeling his heartbeat beneath his torn coat. Warm, she whispered. Human heart. Warm. For a moment the humans forgot the cold, forgot the danger still lurking beyond the horizon. They only felt the weight of what they had done. They had fought not for themselves alone, but for her, a life that another species had cast aside. Karen glanced at the sky, where the faint outline of alien ships could still be seen retreating into the clouds. They'll come again, she said quietly. They won't give up so easily. Mason nodded. Then we'll be ready. Henry frowned. But how? We're only 6 people. Our weapons barely slowed them. Before Mason could answer, the girl shifted in his arms. Her glow brightened faintly, her strength returning in small flickers. Not alone, she whispered. With me. You strong. Her words carried a weight beyond her fragile voice. They had already seen glimpses of her power, shields of light, storms bending to her will, healing warmth that mended wounds. With her beside them, humanity was no longer helpless. Karen placed a hand gently on the girl's shoulder. You're not a mistake, she said firmly, her eyes glistening. You're a miracle. The girl closed her eyes, leaning into Mason's chest. A faint smile curved her lips. It was small, fragile, but full of peace. Hours passed as they secured the ruined valley, gathering supplies and salvaging what they could from the broken hunters. The humans worked together, their bodies exhausted but their spirits unshaken. The girl rested, watched over carefully, as the pale sun dipped low, painting the snow with shades of gold and red. Mason gathered his team. The girl sat beside him, wrapped in blankets, her silver hair shining softly. "We need to decide what comes next," he said. "Do we go back to our world and show them what we've found? Or do we keep her hidden, safe until we understand more?" Henry looked at the girl, then at Mason. "If the world sees her, they'll know she's different. Some will want to protect her, but others will fear her." Karen nodded. "Fear makes people cruel. We've seen it before." The girl listened quietly, her glowing eyes moving from one human to another. Finally she spoke, her voice soft but clear. "I trust you." Those simple words silenced the group. In her weakness, in her fear, she had chosen to believe in them. Not her own kind, but in strangers from a world she had never known. Mason's chest tightened. He looked at his team, then at the girl. "Then we carry that trust carefully," he said. "We don't let her down. Humanity chose differently once, and we'll keep choosing differently." The girl leaned against him, her breathing steady. Her glow spread faintly across the snow, turning the cold valley into something warm, almost alive. Night fell again, stars glittering in the clear sky. The humans sat together in the ruined station, their weapons by their sides. The girl slept, peacefully for the first time, no longer shivering, no longer whispering for safety. And as Mason watched over her, he knew the truth. She was not just an alien, not just a survivor. She was a symbol, proof that compassion could defy cruelty, that kindness could rewrite destiny. Her people had frozen her to erase her, to make her disappear. Humanity had found her and chosen the opposite. They had chosen to fight, to protect, to believe in her, and that choice would change everything, because in the endless cold of the ice, humanity had proven itself not with power or weapons, but with a simple act, refusing to abandon a life that others had thrown away. Humanity chose differently, and the galaxy would never forget it.